Hey,
Uh,
welcome to this conversation, everyone. And I hope that you also participate in the chat box because this year, when we were thinking about how would we open, and we were talking about who would be a really good person, people to bring together to celebrate the Solution Focus 24, and the names that actually came up were immediately we were like, yes. And then to my gratitude, it's when I sent out an invitation, it was like I got yes from all of you. So thank you so much for being here. And I know that Heather and Frank, you know each other, and a lot of people here, you might actually know Heather and Frank and Pam. You're new to this community, so welcome. Thank you for joining my community.
Love it.
So
Thanks for having me.
yeah, so Pam and I we met through Institute of Coaching and also Ezra, as we are both on Science Board. And I love Pam's work, not only her work, but I think I can say this for all three of you, that I just love your character. And I
Mm.
was thinking about how do I begin this conversation? Because when we meet for conferences like this, we often talk about skills development as a practitioner. But somehow I kind of lost interest in skills development because I
Mm.
think knowing how to do, right? And there's like, oh no. And knowing how to do this is a skill, but choosing to do that, I think, is a character. So I think I've seen many people who can do it, but still choosing not to be. So
Mm.
I just thought I so admire your character. So it's not just your work, but also you as a person that I thought would be beautiful to come together for this conversation. So thank you for joining.
Thank you
Oh.
for having it.
So would you like to say a couple things about maybe your work and maybe I don't know what you're passionate about, what you care about in the world at the moment? So I'll start with Heather.
Ah, oh, okay. So I'm a psychologist and I've been a solution focused practitioner for a long time. And I'm so grateful to have discovered solution focused practice when I did. Um,
Hmm.
so I'm old and I continue to do a little bit of clinical work and some training. And in the last few years, I've been doing solution focused writing workshops. And I'm really passionate about that application, enjoying that so much. And it fits in with my lifelong print addiction. And it's been such a pleasure to see, um, to get to sort of come along and see people's work and the things they do and be part of that. It's lovely.
Wow.
Yeah.
And is that writing workshop kind of open to everybody to join?
Um, yeah, the whole world. No, uh, no, you get in touch with me and see when I'm going to do one. And yeah, and I do them from here. I did the first one online because it was May 2020.
No.
But I'm old and I like people to come and visit me instead of me running around. So I do them from my home, and we have a lot of
Wow, that's so awesome. Oh, thank you so much for joining. And
fun.
nice mug.
Yeah.
Oh, and Frank, what do you care about?
Oh, uh, I am the only of the four of us who's not only the only male. I am retired. I'm completely out. And it was serendipitous in some ways because we've had some significant health challenges and deaths in our family. So the timing was good. What's bringing me joy? It was one of the questions you
Maybe
sent.
they'll bring the food.
And I'm sorry,
Mhm.
thought somebody commented on something. Okay.
Mm.
Um, I engage in close friends deeply, and
Mhm.
my circle is smaller, so I'm having fewer conversations with some people and more with others. And I'm passionate about serendipitous meetings, and some of you have me on Facebook, and you've seen a couple of them the last week and writing about those. So when Heather and I share that passion for writing, mine is more. Here's a story. Here's a story. And that and emergent images. I'm a photographer. and I'm working diligently at creating my portfolio. So that's where I'm at right now.
Mm.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that Frank, you're sharing your stories online, and I follow you closely because not only for your stories but also jokes. And then it's like you just every time I check, it's like, my goodness, thank goodness for those moments of like laughter because of your
Yeah.
posts. So thank you for being here.
Thanks, man.
Pam.
Wow, I'm with Frank. I'm not retired, but I act like I am. Because I try to live my life in a way that's peaceful, free, joyful, even in the midst of all the chaos. So I can't even imagine what retirement will be like when it's actual for real retirement. But I am a college professor. I'm a social scientist. I study joy, and I am a writer and I am a professional football player. Um, and we're talking American football. Like, I'm sure this might be, I don't know, this might not be a global audience. This was called the Americas, right? So it is the American pastime of football, and it is tackle. So it is an amazing outlet. I mean, how often do you get to just scream at the top of your lungs just because? And so it is an amazing outlet. It's the outlet I did not know I needed in 2025. But I write about joy. I am, what I really love is the opportunity to play. So if that is in travel, if that is in my work, if it means that I'm writing a serious paper about something, how do I integrate laughter and play and joy into that work? So I'm a polymath, and I learned what that word was because a lot of people criticize polymaths, like pick one area of focus, one thing you want to do and get really good at it. And I've never been good at that. So I do a little bit of everything.
And in our recent conversation, Pam, one of those topics came up that when you talk to people about, when you talk to people at work about all these things that you do, and often the response that we get is, how do you have time to do all of that?
Right.
Right. And then I think it was so insightful that how you respond to that, Pam, was.
Yeah, I mean, my question is, how do I have time to do the other things? Nobody ever asks, how do you have time to go to work every day and write papers? And but the question when I want to do something that's life-giving and like play football or like travel, how do you have time to do that? Well, that actually comes first. So that, and I can't remember how I said it to you, hey son, but it's like, how do I not have time? This is what I do. This is who I am. So it's not a matter of time. It's just a matter of me being, I'm embodying who I am.
And I think the way that I took it as, how do you actually have time to check your emails?
Yeah.
Like, it's not something that you want to do with your life, but you still find time.
Right, right. So if I'm going to have time to do
Wow.
that, you better believe I'm going
Right.
to have time to run across the football field.
Yeah, and I think also when I thought of three of you, I actually thought there's this aspect of joy and hope that all of us actually, everyone in the room too, that we have studied and we have learned and witnessed in ourselves and other people. And I'm just so curious, how did that notion of joy or hope change over time for you when you maybe things that you now know about joy or hope that you didn't know maybe 20 years ago, 30 years ago, and something that you learned along the way, or maybe something you're still learning. So I wanted to pose that question to all of you also on the call, so you can put it in the chat box. What do you now know that you have learned that you didn't know before about joy, about hope, and all those core themes that we talk about in solution focused practice? So I'm gonna actually ask Heather, is it okay? I start with you.
It's okay. Um, so I think the thing that I didn't know before solution focused practice, or maybe early in solution focused practice, is that nobody has to find or create hope for another person. That I remember having a conversation with Lance Taylor years ago when we were going to do a presentation about hope. And, we struggled about the title and we settled on tapping into hope. So I assume that there is hope there. And my job is to help the person tap into what is there, not to make something or to give anybody hope. And I mean, that's a big relief because the idea of giving another person hope seems formidable. Whereas helping them tap into a resource that is there, but they maybe have lost touch with, that's a little more doable. Yeah.
That is a little more doable, absolutely. I mean, sometimes just thinking about joy or hope actually stresses me out. It's like,
Oh
yep,
no.
that's another thing to do, like
Yeah.
wellness. Oh my gosh, stressing me out. Wow. And Pam, how about
Uh,
you?
I love this because my lessons come from a combination of my studies and of my just journey through life. And I'll start with the journey through life. I learned that, there's times where you take joy and hope for granted because things are fine. I'm not in pain. I'm not hurting. Life is good. And we have those moments where that's the case, but then we have those moments where all of a sudden it's COVID and everything is getting shut down and our world is like, what's happening? So I've learned, especially during the COVID era, but in other significant, I guess, milestones of my life, that it has to be intentional. It's not just something that lands on you because you're doing the right thing and because you're a good person. Joy is something that happens because you strategize around it. You will it into existence because you have to push through some really hard times to still experience joy. That doesn't happen by mistake. And so what that also does is it instills hope. And this part comes from my studies. There is a concept called acedia, which is complete apathy. Like I've no hope. It's done. It's gone. And I've met so many people who are in that state of acedia, just and they are, so it's a complete it's almost like numbing yourself, where you're just kind of what is it called, channel surfing through life. Oh, what's on next, what's on next, and people live like that. So to Heather's point, you can't give people hope, but
Mm.
it's really hard to know and to see that so many people live like this on an everyday basis. And so continuing to learn what sparks that for people. And I think what I have found is that joy, starting to take those baby steps towards joy, starts to bring in the hope.
That it's joy is almost like willful competence that like how Heather was talking about tapping into.
Yeah.
But it's not something that happens. Like, I often, think about this word happiness, which shares the same word as hap, as in fortune. It just happens to you,
Yeah,
but it's not that. And it's something that you willfully create.
exactly.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow. Frank.
Oh, I was just thinking of, I was reflecting on what Pam and Heather were saying. Um, I, I I was one of Dwayne Bidwell's professors. And if you don't know Dwayne, I need to go back to last year's SF24 and watch his presentation on hope, because he just came out with a book on pediatric hope with kids who are chronically or terminally ill. And it's just come
Mhm.
out this last year. And I introduced him to social constructionism and Ken Gergen, and we've stayed very, very close friends for a long time. And he has tapped into something that Snyder from A&M, talking about hope for years, just didn't tap into. And that is the relational aspect of hope. I don't think hope is personal only. I think hope is a social resource. So going along with Dwayne, I don't think we teach people how to be hopeful. I don't think we teach them how to be skillful in developing hope. I'm not even sure that I can instill it in someone else, but it comes from the relationships. It's in practices with people where you maintain connections, and it's the where and the when, as Dwayne would say. It's relational and topological. It is, where is my hope at this my moment, and with whom?
Mm.
And it's ways of knowing that it's not about so much about the future, it's about the present. I'm hopeful about this. And so many people talk about optimism and hope. I think they're very, very different constructs. And optimism, I think, is Pollyannish. It's way future oriented. It's as ifs. And hope is much more about solution-focused kinds of concepts. And that is, what is present? How can we tap into this? What are resources that people have? And that's a little bit about hope. But I don't think any of it's contradictory to what the others have said. I hope it's adding on. But I, as a social systems person, always have been systemic. I cannot think of hope as something that's internal. I think of it as something that's internal and relational.
That's so good. Hey, son, you said we could ask each other questions. Can I jump in?
Yes.
Wow.
Because I love this so much, what you just said, Frank. And one of the things that I've always said is that hope is and I just want to know how that resonates, whether or not it resonates. But people say hope is not a strategy. And I'm thinking, are you serious? Absolutely, hope is a strategy. And I always have believed that it is. And I'm just curious to know, especially with your perspective on social systems, how does that resonate with you and Heather as well, if you have thoughts on that?
Wow. I stopped being strategic when I got introduced to Steve DeShazer.
Oh.
So the word strategy doesn't really fit with the way that I think now. That was 40 years ago. I'm really old. It's the beard that gives it away, but even though my hair isn't that gray. So that's a really hard question for me to respond to. I'll maybe let Heather take it. That's a great question.
Well, I was also thinking that Steve didn't always stop being strategic, but I think it can be, and I think that can be a long road for a lot of people to get to the point where it is a choice that they deliberately make. Mm-hmm. I do think that the strategies of solution-focused conversation, or just the habits of solution-focused conversation, that are not solely the province of solution-focused practitioners. We know that our clients very quickly pick up a lot of those habits. I mean, week 2 with an adolescent group, and they're asking me scaling questions, right, about what my plans are for them. So anyone that picks up some of that kind of conversation, I think it's a real ally, because engaging in these conversations tunes people not to miss what is hopeful, right? To catch those good bits. And of course, there's the thing, I mean, you talked so eloquently, Frank, about the systemic nature of hope, the interactive nature of hope. My grandmother would have said, hope is catching. And we can infect each other. And sometimes it doesn't take much. And so that idea of it as a strategy, that's interesting.
That's an interesting understanding of the word strategy, probably, because I think, if I'm not wrong, one of the root words of etymology of the word strategy, it's often used in military term, but actually it means to spread, something that's spreading. So infectious, absolutely, I think. So in that sense, I think that strategy is sort of making into multitudes or multiplying and spreading. And how do we do that when we put the words strategy and hope together? It's an interesting perspective.
It's really good for Pamela for you to raise this, because I was reading some of your work, because I didn't know you before. How I learn is to read. Hopefully I get a bit of who you are. And I really did resonate a lot with your joy work. But back to the idea of strategy, I'm trying to think of it as more of an orientation. More of this, I'm a martial artist in my past, and all of it is about stance. It's not about technique. It's all about stance. And where your center is, how you're moving around your center, and how you lower your weight, and how you move is all about stance. So my stance is more along the lines of being oriented toward hope. Because I remember Haesun talking in Dwayne's workshop last year, when a person was terminally ill, you can be a dopeless hope fiend, as I read once from one of our solution-focused leaders, which I love the phrase, and it's painful. It's actually torturous to try to raise hope in a hopeless situation, unless you are doing it relationally. What do you hope for today? What do you hope for in our conversation, rather than pressing it into the future? So I always try to bring hope into the present rather than as a future orientation.
That's so
And
interesting.
I hope
yeah,
that.
isn't it? And then also I hear these sort of thread of tapping in, tapping into. You know, Heather, you into
Yes.
this idea of tapping in and we're sort of like building on that. And especially how do we tap into it when it gets harder and harder, when really hope feels like borderline torture or it's a stretch. How do we do this
Hmm.
in those moments?
I,
And yeah, go on.
So I was
Go
going
on.
to say what I just put in the comment was that based on this whole idea of martial arts and looking at it from that standpoint, then hope then is perhaps a posture. And in those moments, then what posture are we taking in those situations? I love this. I love this conversation.
Mm.
So this is going to sound a little strange, but I always go to this example. I come from a very large extended family, and one of the things that means is that I have gone to hundreds of funerals in my life,
Mm,
and some of them tragic, obviously. And I've never gone to one where there was not hope, among other positive things, humor and joy and connection. And I think very much in those settings, coming out of the power of the connection people feel in those moments and how that can support um, going forward from this point a little differently. And there's all that research now on positive emotion, how it shows up anywhere, everywhere, and is useful and important and good to notice. Um, and some people, I mean, we know this in the work we do, that some people seem to have relentlessly awful experiences, sometimes over protracted periods of time. The pain and trouble just keeps building up. And there are always, if we are there for them, there are moments even in that mess of crap that are different, and that can perhaps help us take that posture, that stance.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and even in the clinical work, it's just notice and reflecting them back to the person so they can catch them too. Such a simple
Mhm.
thing, but it's really important.
Yeah, yeah. May I add to that just quickly? When I see a pile of shit, I think there's a puppy in there somewhere.
oh, I love it.
We can't hear you,
Oh,
Frank.
yeah.
Can't hear you, Frank.
All of a sudden, your sound just went.
Oh.
That's what happens when you start swearing on Zoom. They just, tune you right out. See? I knew it. I knew it. So maybe you need to plug unplug. We'll see if it goes. Yeah, I know that Zoom actually, filters. And when we think about this idea of posture, and also, Frank, you're talking about martial art. I just took up this weird thing because dance was too hard for me, so I studied karate. And they talk about this posture and stance all the time. And what I'm learning is maybe hope even as a posture. Posture doesn't come suddenly one day. Posture is a product of habit that you talk about, Heather. It's a habitual positioning of yourself that becomes a posture. So if you have a slouching posture, it didn't come in a day. You've been slouching for a while. And that everyday habit, accumulation of that becomes your posture. And I think in that sense, hope is not a noun, but as you say, in your book, Heather, it's hope is something that is very active. It's a verb.
Mhm.
So understanding this hope as a verb, what can we do as an everyday practice that builds our habit that will accumulate to be a posture? Maybe even personal anecdote if you have, but it's also a question to all of you. What are you doing in your practice, all of you in this call, that is building that habit of this posture of hope? What are you doing? And some of you, I know you might be going through some pile of shit. And what are you doing? Now, wait till I get muted, right? Frank, say something and let's see if we can hear you. No, not yet. Frank, do you want to log out and log back in? Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now I'm going to be looking for the puppy. Right. Very motivating.
Love that so much.
Very motivating.
Yeah.
I love that a lot.
Yeah.
Um, I love that a lot. Um, I go back to Anne Maston, who is a resilience researcher, wrote this thing a long time ago about kids and resiliency, and she called it ordinary magic.
Mm.
And, I just love that phrase. And I think
Mm.
being present for ordinary magic, catching it, noticing it, reflecting it, um, embracing it, building it up. I mean, it's one of the roles that I can take that helps me stay hopeful, and hope is catching. And that thing about how in conversations with other people, especially people who are struggling, um, even if they are not able to access any hope for themselves in a moment, if they think we're hopeful for them, they do better.
Mm.
Mm.
And that's a very potent thing. I mean, so I think it's a professional responsibility I have, to stay hopeful and to be grounded in that posture. Um,
Wow.
I love that.
And I think that's the line that I also always think about. How do you, especially when we're living in a society driven by these skills, upskill, upskill, and how do we slow down and think about building character? And so it's just, I'm really resonating with that. Pam, what about you?
I it's the small moments, and so it's kind of related to Heather. I can't remember exact the phrase that she said, the small
ordinary
miracle,
magic.
ordinary magic. Um, but and I guess from my standpoint, I think about it in terms of the ordinary magic or the small moments that we create with intention. And I'm a bit of a control freak. So for me, it's like I got to create these moments. They're not going to just come. I got to create them. So for me, it's about what can I create in the moments that feel like, disparaging. And sometimes for me, it's just taking a deep breath, and starting there. And then where can I build from here? Because I might not have any sense of control in any particular situation. But for me, it's the physical. How can I make sure that physiologically, because I'm going to respond with levels of anxiety, heart rate elevated. So first and foremost, what can I do to bring myself down or out of those moments? And for me, sometimes it is pacing. Pacing around the house, if I can go outside, that walking, that motion. I'm reading a book right now called The Joy of Movement. Love the book so much. And realizing why movement, dance. I have my, music on, and I will just take a dance break in between meetings. Those are the things that kind of keep me going and keep me hopeful, like it's going to be fine. I'm going to be okay. And then when I have clarity of mind, we can figure out what's next. But right now in this moment, I need to make sure my body is good.
Wow, I love Pam, this dancing in between tackling.
Right before I got on here, I was dancing. And right after I get off, I'm going to do another.
Frank, are you
Wow.
back?
Frank, say something. You're on mute.
Okay,
Unmute and let's see.
Test 1 to 3.
There you go.
I just switched
Welcome
devices.
back.
I've got multiple devices. I may have missed the question. I am sorry.
No,
Did you
it's
change
it's a
questions?
question of hope as an everyday habit, or even as a ordinary magic, that being able to actually hope in micro moments is some, magic in itself, I guess. So
Nice.
yeah,
Nice.
Frank.
Yeah, I'm in the winter of my life. And one of the things that we're talking about lifespan and what we learned about hope from the very beginning, or the early question that you asked, is that I'm hopeful differently. I'm not invested so much in outcomes. I'm a lot more invested in can I maintain rather than can I advance? And I do think that's a big piece of those of us. I saw Gil was on. I saw some other uh, people in their later years, uh, still active, still enjoying conversations, still trying to be stimulated and stimulate others' ways of thinking. So that's, I think, a realistic hope for those of us who are not early career or are not younger. And that's something I try to work at maintaining. There's a theological construct called finitude, which means we all have limits. And as you get older, you discover more or different limits. And therefore, your hope hopefully will adjust to that. I don't hope to get back on the mat. I've broken too many bones and dislocated too many joints and torn too many things. I have no hope of returning to that level of physicality. That doesn't mean I can't have a hope for physical activity on a daily basis. That maybe Pam wouldn't want to see me dance, but maybe dancing. Maybe that's more of what I need, and that's realistic within my limits. So there's something about a lifespan piece there that I wanted to add that I was thinking of earlier. Thanks.
The thing I've been thinking about this, of course, that it's very liberating being old because finitude. I literally, a lot of the things that might have bothered me or got between me and what most matters to me, what gives me joy and hope.
I think we might have lost Heather's
it's going around.
audio.
Oh no.
It's spreading, it's infectious.
Oh. Well, can I do on this finitude point, there has to be something really liberating about that because one of the things that we're told early career, mid-career, and the point at which we're supposed to be climbing some ladder is you can do anything you put your mind to. And I think many of us have kind of gotten over that. I think that maybe that's not necessarily a realistic thing. But I still see people holding themselves to that standard that, if I must be complacent if I'm not climbing. And I've had that critique. I've had a colleague / friend who said, so what you don't want to promote, I'm a professor. You don't want to be the president of the university? You don't want to be the dean of the department? No. Absolutely not. And the response was, oh, so you want to be complacent? And it's like, no, it's not complacency. So there's this idea that you're always supposed to be on some kind of climb. And if it doesn't look like a climb, you're not elevating, you're just stagnant.
There's a great phrase from Nickel Creek, the song they sing. It says, you find out you're climbing a ladder leaning against the wrong wall. And that's what I see a lot of people that get to the end of their life. And there's a thought bubble with the guy who's in a bed dying. It says, I'm so glad I managed to memorize all this trivia. It's so we're back to, I think, I just love what you're saying, Pam, about people saying you're complacent. Yeah. As if there's a point of, my question back to them would be, and where did you get the idea it's okay to pass a judgment? I really want to know. I mean, I'm not mystified or even offended. I just would like to know where you think that's okay.
Yeah.
And where that's coming from for you. So it doesn't end up being something that's a telling and then a shutting down. So that's an opening. That's a great opening with people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Heather, we're building on the sentence you left off us with, which is, this is liberating. Yeah. We're talking about liberation.
Okay.
So yes, please, welcome back, and please continue. This Zoom is being infectious with shutting down, and so there you go.
Might be next. I don't know.
Yeah, I was just very focused on getting back in. So ask another question, please.
Another question that I was thinking as you were chatting about this is this. Quite realistically, I just took out my my small notebook that I usually carry around when I travel. And this is an indicator of my stress level. So not too long ago, it's March 24, on my way home from a really tiring trip, And I said, on an early flight. And I got on the early flight, and then the guy who's actually blocking the corridor pisses me off. And then the guy in front of me who has a weird laugh is annoying to no end. And I wouldn't care if they died. It's what I wrote in my book. And then actually the ending sentence was, I must be tired.
Yeah.
Now, so I tell you this, March 24th, not too long ago. And I actually wrote it. And I thought, wow, this is crazy. And I thought, what do you do when you get tired of hoping that someone else might change? And that's a real question for me because I think I'm still working on my character development, and I regularly host apology class and apologizing to people that I offended regularly and so on. But I really think about this. Knowing how to do this doesn't mean that I always choose to do it, especially when I'm tired of hoping, situationally, relationally, and especially when we hear people who are full of themselves saying, I'm the best, I'm the biggest, and all those things, and everyone else is this and that. And that person is now voted as one of the leaders of nation. Just I'm suppose somebody like that is voted in a country to lead, and picking fight with everybody and calling people names like racist or whatever, this and ist. Now then, how do we sustain this hope? That am I hoping that they might change? What am I hoping for anyway?
Mm.
So that's my realistic question to all of you here too. But yeah, so
I just want to say what a great writer's habit to always have your notebook.
Yes.
Yeah, good for you. Maybe I have a story because I don't know that I have a clear answer, but there was something that really inspired me recently about this. I was on the beach with my dog, as I am every day, and he had wandered off, and I called him back. I said, Caper, come. And in Nova Scotia, where I live, a caper is what we call somebody who comes from Cape Breton Island. So this woman was walking by with her dog, and she said, "Oh, are you from down home then?" And I said, or no, she said, "Is your dog from down home then?" And I said, "No, he's from here, but I'm from Cape Breton." And and I said, I think identity comes through the mother, right? And she looked at me like I had two heads. I mean, this sort of little quip just did not land with this woman. And I was, oh, okay, this is a little awkward. And then she smiled and she said, whatever you think yourself. And it took me back because it's an expression I heard hundreds of times growing up. My grandmother used it a lot, my uncle, but you would hear it most often in an argument, and especially an argument that was heated and was clearly not progressing. Like there'd be no reconciliation or resolution for this argument. And at some point, somebody would pause and say, well, whatever you think yourself. And the other person would also pause and say, oh, right. You're right. And, that would be it. And I just, it took me back to all kinds of examples and memories of hearing this. And I think I want to resurrect this. I want to bring it out of my childhood and start using it again. And in particular, when I'm tempted to say, are you thinking? I maybe want to try that instead because tone's important, and you can say anything in a more or less pleasant or unpleasant way. But I feel like I always heard it, and I definitely heard it the other day as just an acknowledgement that we all have our own thoughts.
Yeah.
That's right.
Down Texas, we say, bless her heart.
I was going to say that.
Bless her heart. She can't help, but she's got a plate in her head.
Yeah.
Bless her heart. But
yeah.
I really love the question and the way that you're responding with a story, Hedda, because David Brooks has an article in the New York Times today about paganism, which is raising the loftiness of the individual and hyper masculinity and conquering and all the stuff going on at the high levels of government in our country right now. And he said the cultural atmosphere you immerse yourself in will slowly form who you are. Mm-hmm. So I'm still back to a systems perspective for me, a systems perspective, not the, and just one of many, of who am I around? If I'm going to maintain hope in contexts that really challenge hopefulness, I need to surround myself with people that whatever, fill in the blank. My best friend's an atheist. I need his perspective. Yeah. I really need his perspective rather than, okay, we all know this is going to work out and all things work out for good to those who love, Jesus and all the things that Christians might quote. And then he goes, nah. So I need to look at the immediate hope now of how we might influence or avoid being influenced. I hope that's connecting a bit.
Yeah, and that reminds me of what Jenny Clark actually said a couple of years ago that really stayed with me. And she said on one of the Facebook posts, she said, I like who I am when I'm with you.
Oh.
And how do we surround ourselves with people who really, I like who I am when I'm with you? And that really stayed with me. Like, it's a choice we make, right? Yeah.
And it's amazing that she said that to Mark. I'm just joking. Mark's one of my favorite people. But I absolutely agree with what Jenny's saying. It is. I don't know who I am unless I'm with you. Yeah. In a way that is important. Not totally, but in a way that's important. Yeah. Did I interrupt, Pam? I'm sorry.
No. I think I interrupted. But one of the things that I wrote, it just reminds me of something that I stated, and it said that I want to be more of myself when I'm in your presence rather than less of myself. Mm-hmm. And that just has so much meaning for across relationships, whether romantic, professional. And I've really intentionally gravitated to the people who allow me to be more of myself, or people that I'm in which I feel free, whether or not they allow it. If I feel free to be more of myself in their presence, I know that's a signal for me. That's the green flag. Move forward. This is the relationship that you want to be connected to.
Yeah. Wow.
But I don't have an answer to the question about when people in power.
About the answers.
Yeah, I have no response to that. I'm lost in there.
Well, you're in a different generation, Pamela, because I have the answer.
You do.
It's 42.
It's 42.
And we'll talk about that later. The answer is 42. Okay. Douglas Adams. Sorry, it's like of a different generation. But no, I love what you said. More of myself.
Yeah.
Rather than less of myself when I'm with you. That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's liberating to Heather's point. That's freeing,
isn't it? That you can actually and all of you have that. All of you on this call, you have somebody that you can say that about. That I like who I am when I'm with you. And I really want you to think about that name that you will actually say that to. Like, who do you have in your life that you can say that to? And I remember when I had my personal struggle of, I got angry about something and I was about to do something and with the right cause of saving the community or whatever. And then I talked to Frank. And I remember Frank actually having the best advice that I could take at the moment. And he said, here's the thing. He said, if you want to wrestle with a pig, it's going to make the pig happy, but you're going to get muddy. Mm-hmm. And that was like the best advice that at the time I was ready to go and fight and, all that stuff. And then it stopped me right there. Yeah. So I'm going to actually ask all of you to kind of reflect on some of those like advices you have, you took to your heart, or something that maybe it was your personal struggle that shaped who you are today. I mean, some of those things that I would love to hear from you on a personal level. Mm-hmm. If you have an example.
It's hard for me to think of it as it's a sort of struggle. Has been a struggle, perhaps. So I am hyperlexic, which is I was diagnosed in my 40s. it's a condition on the autism spectrum. And it means that as a kid, I comprehended language very early. I read very young. And so listening and reading and stories have been deeply important to me all my life. But my speech was very delayed and very complicated. And I wasn't really able to speak intelligibly to anyone outside my family until I was 9 or 10, probably. And I was often just mute. So being able to talk and have conversation is kind of a miracle to me. And the solution focused, the care that we take in how we listen and capture people's words and interact with people and their words and I love that. I am just so amazed still by how words can build bridges between people. And we can do this thing, one of the few strange professional words that actually means exactly what it says is co-construction. And we co-construct hope and joy and meaning. Yeah. Have I answered your question?
I think it's, Heather, it's a reflection too that as you speak about it, I was also thinking hope is usually found in those places of personal struggles. And I think if everything was going the way that I want, there's a less room for hope.
At some point, I do also think enough character development. Like, please, like enough. Okay.
I'm done with it.
Like, yeah. I'm good. I'm good.
I'm good enough. Leave me alone. Wow. Yeah. Pam, how about you?
That's really hard. I think my biggest lessons have been in my willfulness, and it can be a great willful mindset, and it could be I'm going to show you kind of willful mindset. And I think that first time that really happened for me, and it's going to be this is pretty vulnerable, but I'm going to tell it anyway. I was 18 and I was a pastor's, well, deacon's daughter. We were in church. My dad hosted a Bible study at our house every week. I hosted a side Bible study in another room with the teenagers. I was very adamant. I'm going to wait till I get married. I'm gonna, all of those things that we were taught. And there was a time I had a boyfriend. I was 18 years old and I was in college. I graduated when I was 17. So I was fully in college. And my parents forbade me, like, we forbid you to see this guy. And I had already been trying to break up with him for about a month because I kind of saw some signs in him and said, "Ooh, something's not right." But when they said that, I love him. And I all of a sudden needed to keep this person in my life. Come hell or high water, this was gonna be my boyfriend. And so my agenda totally changed. Um, Out of this, you're not gonna tell me what to do. I'm gonna call my own shots. And the very first time, my mom basically told me, "You're probably not a virgin anymore." And I was so offended because I was. But I said, "I'm going to make you be telling the truth right now." And so I actually lost my virginity that same day that she told me I wasn't because I wanted to. And there's and look, this is if I had more time, we would unpack lost your virginity, but we don't have time for that. But I got pregnant that day. That day. So
Yeah.
so 18 years old, and that totally obviously changed the entire trajectory of my life, or perhaps this was the trajectory it was supposed to be on. But I suddenly was now a mom going through college. I didn't stop. I still went through college. My parents said, "You're going to have to figure this out on your own, figure out how to pay on your own." And I did. And I figured it out. And we patched it up. We are amazing. It was a couple of years, but we're good. They are amazing. We've apologized to each other. We've grown together. It's amazing. And I have learned from them sort of the power of what it means to go through a really rough patch, but then to humble yourself and to learn and grow together. And I'm so grateful to have that with them as a foundation because I can take that into my other relationships. But that period of my life has its own series of rough periods and lessons. Me and my son sleeping on couches, I mean, you name it. But it has made me the person that I am today. So,
Wow. Well, I'm honored. I am. I feel really honored right now. Thanks for sharing. We lost Heather again. And huge thunderclaps going on here. The power's going in and out. So I guess I'll go with this. I am a cancer survivor, and I'm still having, I had my most previous surgery. It was 3 weeks ago. So cancer is the gift that keeps on taking. It just is. And it was a turning point for me because that's when I stopped doing therapy. I was in my 60s and I've been doing therapy, and it was a part of my identity, not just to be a professor, but also to be a practitioner. But at that point I said, I'm going to reorganize, reduce, reflect, and change things. And I've hopefully continued to do that. And part of it is an identity. I have a mala that I wear as a representative of all the people that I have connected with who have survived or not survived cancer. So there's this constant reminder of wearing a mala and of recalling shifts that I made purposefully. So when we talk about something that quietly shaped, it shapes everything. And the biggest change is I'm more like Job's friends from the Old Testament before they started talking. Because that's when they got, in trouble. That's when it got stupid. I show up. I'm sure that Haesun will tell you, hey, today is the day that your dad died. I'm listening to his music today. That's how you show up.
That's exactly how he's been showing up. And I think through so many moments, like the vulnerable moments. And I think that's what, really gives us, that's what keeps us sustaining when we don't avoid it. We're not trying to avoid it, but how do we show up in those moments? And I know that we're, nearing the closing, but, witnessing and also participating so many moments like this of confronting my own abuser, let's say, or other people I know that I have witnessed people coming out to their families and friends and also leaving family or joining a family, being houseless, unhoused, and so many of those pockets of moments that we have. I think we still hold that choice of possibly holding a little bit different, willfully different conversations. And I think we do that in our own ways, but we happen to do this in solution-focused way. And I think I am so grateful for this community that we are here. And I think we are doing this practice and growing together, learning together. And I think one of my, I guess, ending or reflecting on this conversation so far is to encourage all of you to also put it in the chat box. What are you, and this phrase is what I learned from Janine Waldman. And what would you like to remember from this conversation? What would you like to remember from this conversation? Whether it's said or it's your insight. What would you like to remember? And let me pose that to Pam, Frank, and I don't know if Heather is back. So let me ask you that question too. What would you like to remember from this conversation?
Well, as a joy researcher, I wrote down whenever I see a pile of shit, I look for the puppy. It epitomizes everything that I do and have tried to work and figure out and help people walk through is where's the puppy? Is that you? Can I quote you or is that somebody else? Because I'm taking that with me.
I never claim folksy things like that as mine. Just say you heard it somewhere.
I love it.
Yeah,
Maybe
I'll remember that too. And also, just being reminded again about the importance of stance, posture, about grounding. Thank you.
I I continually come back to the storytelling that I'm going to carry away from this. Yeah, you women have continued to amaze me with. Could I ever say, "Wow"? One more time. And Insu was a friend of mine, and I have internally and sometimes externally. Just wow, that just fits. That helps. That's wonderful. So I'm taking away the stories that you've shared. I'm really, really honored that you've shared stories today that I can carry with me.
And then there are also other stories and comments in the chat box that we can carry with ourselves too. So thank you, all of you, for joining. I really am so grateful that you joined today. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Pam. And thank you, all of you, for joining. And SF24 America continues on, so feel free to join in as well in other sessions. But thank you, everyone. My big thank you and hugs to all of you.
Please don't forget to join us at the end for our close. Right, Haesun?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thank you for organizing this.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.